I am so happy to be joined once again by a good friend. This is our quadrennial check-in. It seems like every 4 years I get to talk to you about Batman. The last time we spoke was 4 years ago over lunch at Comic-Con for the 10th anniversary of The Dark Knight. 4 years before that, we talked about the 25th anniversary of Batman '89 movie. And the first time we ever met was on a plane going to Comic-Con in 2009. So welcome back to the Nerds of Color, Michael Uslan.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you again. And this is a year we've got so many celebrations going on. Not only do we have the Batman movie, but we've got the 30th anniversary of Batman Returns, 30th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series, 10th anniversary of Dark Knight Rises, 40th anniversary of Swamp Thing.
Yes, years that end in two are really good for you and your work. I think that's the lesson.
I will take it gladly.
well, welcome. Before we get to that, I did want to congratulate you on the Batman, because we're sitting here, in the wake of its enormous global success in the middle of a pandemic, which is also just mind blowing. Imagine if it wasn't COVID, it would be like making a gazillion dollars if it isn't already. But on top of that, like I said, the last time we spoke was the 10th anniversary of The Dark Knight, and at that time, you and I were both saying, Christopher Nolan had created the greatest Batman movie of all time. And I still agree, but it's hard to top the greatest of all time. But I think I texted you right after I got out of the Batman and said, you know what? You've done it again, Michael. This is the platonic ideal of Batman. How are you able to continually make and just one up? What's your secret is, I guess, what I'm asking.
Well, the secret is that we need to move the spotlight to the filmmakers.
Yeah.
And it's a very clear key. And the key is find the filmmakers who clearly have a love for this character, who have an understanding of the character, who have an authentic passion for the character, and most importantly, who have a vision for the character. And if you believe that they can execute that vision, I think everyone else's job is to stand back and become the greatest cheerleaders you can possibly become, and support them in every which way possible. 45 years now into my career, I can say to you that there is an amazing legacy here, simply in the fact that 4 times now, over 33 years, a Batman movie or a Batman related movie has literally changed Hollywood, changed the world's perception of superheroes and supervillains and comic books, and redefined what a comic book movie could be. Tim Burton did it with Anton Furst in 1989's Batman. Clearly revolutionary. It happened again when Christopher Nolan came in to do the Dark Knight trilogy and restored the darkness and dignity to Batman. It happened a third time when Todd Phillips did the Joker, and did it in a way like nobody had ever imagined a comic book based movie could be. And now it's again happened with Matt Reeves. This simply is a complete redefining of what a superhero comic book movie is. When people would ask me before the movie opened, which Batman movie is its cinematic antecedent, or is there a Marvel movie? And I kept saying none. The cinematic antecedents for this movie are Silence of the Lambs, Chinatown, Seven, Usual Suspects, Zodiac.
Yeah.
Well, had a hard time understanding that. So recently I went back into my old files and found that starting in late 1989 was when I began campaigning the studio to let us do Batman as the world's greatest detective and show that part of it. So it's taken 33 years. And I can tell you right now, point blank, it was worth the wait.
Well, not only you're the boy who loved Batman, but you are the boy with immense patience, because that's kind of the story of the career, right? Because the journey from buying the rights as a 20-year-old, which is, the fact that you were in your 20s and bought the rights to Batman, like in 2022 seems unfathomable, but that was you in the 70s. But that 10-year journey from buying the rights to actually getting the Batman movie, '89 movie on screen, was that long, arduous journey. and here you are 30 years later, still kind of like chugging along, putting out great Batman movies. And again, I think what I love about the character is that it lends itself to interpretation, right? That like Matt Reeves' stamp on this character is so apparent in this movie, as was Zack Snyder's stamp, as was Joel Schumacher's stamp, as was Nolan's stamp, Burton's stamp, Bruce Timm's stamp. Like, the character is always omnipresent, but he's also open to interpretation that allows these filmmakers to put their version out there into the world. What do you think it is about Batman that he's like, it makes him more of like a James Bond than what Marvel's putting out?
Well, you've hit the heart and soul of it. And it's not just about the filmmaker's interpretation. It's about each and every one of us as fans, our own personal interpretations. The question I keep getting asked at Comic-Cons and at universities when I speak, which is the one true Batman, Michael? And it's the easiest question in the world to answer. The one true Batman is the Batman you were first introduced to, whether you were 5 or 8 or 12 or 16 or an adult, whether it was a comic book or a movie or a cartoon or a video game, that it becomes your one true Batman. Now, with that understanding, let's go back to the history of Batman in comics. Batman in comics has been interpreted over the decades from one extreme to the other extreme. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, primarily. So the Batman I was first introduced to had Bat Genie, Bat Mite, Bat Ape, Bat Hound, the Alien Batman, the Super Batman of Planet X. Yeah, that stuff, which today is largely considered crap, when considered in the whole thing. That was the Batman that I first learned about. But as I grew older and matured, I felt Batman was always growing older and maturing with me. And the graphic storytelling was becoming more and more sophisticated. And there's magic in it. Why is there magic in Batman more than any other superhero? It keeps coming down to this thing about him being human and that we can all identify with him, to the point where I believe we all get to project our own personal philosophies and even our own politics onto Batman and see in him ourselves the way we wish to. So I go back to the story when Dark Knight came out. The political pundits on TV were having a field day. If you turned on Fox News, everybody on the far right was claiming the Dark Knight as their own because of this, this, and this.
Right.
You turn on MSNBC, everyone on the far left was claiming Batman as their own because of that, that, and that. And it was, to me, hysterical how they were able to project themselves into the character. In addition to being human, I am a subscriber to Stan Lee's theory of supervillains. Stan said to me, Michael, the greatest and most long-lasting superheroes have been the ones with the greatest supervillains, because ultimately it is the supervillains who define the superheroes. And he's right about that. Batman has had the greatest rogues gallery of supervillains to draw on, inarguably the greatest supervillain ever created. And I don't think there's any argument with that. He's also had the most primal origin story. I mean, when I was 7, 8 years old, I never thought about my parents dying.
Right.
You read that and it shakes you to your core. You never forget the impact, the emotional impact. And what we've found is that that primal origin story transcends not only borders around the world, but cultures. And it resonates with everybody from the pit of your stomach on. And lastly, of course, it's the magic of the car. I
mean, chicks dig the car, to paraphrase a line from one of the Batman movies. I know that the origin story of your trajectory to Batman executive producer was, realizing that people were laughing at the Adam West version of Batman and wanting to bring the more, Denny O'Neil, Frank Miller, Bob Kane, Bill Finger comics to fruition. Now that, after 40 years of dark, gritty Batmans, and, a few years ago, there was kind of like a renaissance of the 66 version of Batman. There was the Cape Crusaders animated movie, the TV show finally came out on Blu-ray and everything. Like, do you have have you evolved in your, because as you said, the Adam West Batman was essentially your Batman. as a kid.
No, not exactly. Um,
Oh, I guess you were like a teenager when it came out, maybe.
yeah, I was a teenager and I was a fan already. And I had already met Bill Finger twice. I had met Bob Kane. I was a fanboy. I knew the whole history of Batman. I was a subscriber from day one to Batmania, the fanzine.
Right.
No, and that's why I explained that when it came on the air in January '66, I was simultaneously thrilled and horrified. I've been waiting for months for this show to come on the air. And it opens with the animation. It kind of looks like Bob Kane, Jerry Robinson art. And it was in color. And the sets were pretty extravagant. The car was cool. But 20 minutes in, it hit me that they were making a joke, that this was a comedy. And the fact that audiences around the world were laughing at Batman. And that this was the one and only iteration of Batman that the whole world knew from.
Right.
That was the sore point for me. That's why that night in our basement den, I made my vow.
As a bat crashed through your window, right?
In my basement den, I made a vow like Bruce Wayne once made a vow, except he made his vow over the slaughtered body of his parents. My parents were safe upstairs in the kitchen. But I said,
you made your vow over the slaughtered body of Batman's reputation, I guess.
over my Zenith TV. I said, somehow, someday, I've got to show the world the true Batman, the way he was originally created as a creature of the night who stalks these demented villains, and try to do something to get rid of these new words, pow, zap, and wham, that had been introduced to the world culture. And that became the mission. But, you know, you could, it's great to dream big, but I might as well have been dreaming, all right, someday I'm going to jump over the Grand Canyon, because the odds were about the same. And you learn in life how one step at a time, get up off the damn couch, be proactive, take charge of your dreams, of your goals, get your foot in any door that's open, even a little crack. And I quickly learned, as I got out of school in particular, that life consists of, for those of us not born with a silver spoon in their mouths, I'm a blue collar kid from New Jersey. You're going to get out there and you got to knock on doors, and guaranteed doors will slam in your face. I promise you, I absolutely promise you that's going to happen. And what I learned the hard way was, when that does happen, you really only have two choices. You can go home and cry about it, or you do, and this kind of cosmically was a theme in Batman Begins, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you go back and you knock again.
Why do we fall, Michael?
And you keep knocking. At the end of the day, after the 10 years it took from the time we bought the rights to Batman from DC Comics till we were able to get that first movie made in 1989, I could say that the Batman franchise was built on my bloody knuckles. And that's what it took.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and the joy it's brought to the world over the last 4 decades is immense and immeasurable as well. Speaking of those 40 years, I think the other kind of like legacy of the live action Batman films, which I find very fascinating, is the legacy of people mocking the casting before the movie comes out and then being blown away once the movie comes out. You know, you've shared the story multiple times of the first time Tim came to you and was like, I want Michael Keaton to play Batman. And you were like, what? You know, and of course, we heard the same mocking when Heath Ledger was announced as the Joker, when Ben Affleck was announced as Batman, and of course, with Robert being announced, there's all these jokes and memes and everything. And then the movie comes out, and all of a sudden, this is my favorite Batman. This is my favorite Joker. What is it? You know, you talked about filmmakers' vision. What is it that they're seeing in these actors for these characters that like the rest of the world is missing? Like Michael Keaton in 1988 seems like a ridiculous choice. 40 years later, it's like, it's hard to picture anyone else in that suit in 1989.
Yeah, and it's a valid point. I think the first of all, let me say this: every single fan has a right to judge and criticize any movie about any of the characters that they love so much. I'll go beyond that. They have an obligation to do it. But do it after you see the movie. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. So I think the mistake comes when they hear the name of an actor in a void and they react to the name of the actor. And it shouldn't be that way. What they should do is react to the filmmaker and look and try to understand, based on the track record of the filmmaker, any statements made by the filmmaker or the studio or the people behind the camera, what that filmmaker's vision is, and ask the following questions. Does this filmmaker seem to have a love for this character, a passion for this character, an understanding of this character? Does this filmmaker appear to have a vision? I'm not saying you got to reveal what that vision is, but do they seem to have an emphatic vision for this? And based on their track records, do you believe they can execute that vision? That's what you've got to look at. So that's the only way you get out of that void, so that when Ben Affleck is announced to play Bruce Wayne, you don't just react to that, you react to, oh, they want a 45-year-old Bruce Wayne who's already done with this, and he's exasperated and frustrated and bitter and gets dragged back into it kicking and screaming. Oh my God. Then in the context of the vision of the filmmaker, it makes perfect sense. Same thing with Robert Pattinson. Oh, wait a minute. This filmmaker is going to do Batman like at the end of year 1 or beginning year 2. He's not this built up Dark Knight yet. That's an evolution. He's more the acrobatic, lithe body. He's more the young guy who's still making mistakes, who's still tripping over his own feet, who's still getting hurt. There's an evolution to all of this, not only with the guy, but with things like the Batmobile, an evolution. And that's the key. That's the way in. So, typically when a lot of fans have the instantaneous negative reaction to casting announcements, I kind of get thrown out in front of the shooting squad because I think the fans know I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I come out of fandom, and I'm not some corporate Hollywood suit that's reading a statement that was written by some PR person, and that I'm speaking from my heart and soul, and that I'm speaking as Batman's Batman.
Yeah.
As Batman's defender. And that I knew and was friendly with Jerry Robinson deeply, that I'm probably one of only 2 people left alive right now who actually met Bill Finger and had Bill Finger tell me straight from the horse's mouth about the creation of Batman. And Bob Kane, whom I had a longstanding relationship with, and I understood a lot about Bob Kane. So, when I do all of these things, I feel a personal responsibility to the creators. I do. Most of these creators spent their careers being denigrated because it was that period of time of Dr. Frederick Wertham and Seduction Innocent, when comic books were being blamed for the post-World War II rise of juvenile delinquency. And I knew these, largely it was men. There were a handful of women involved in this as well. Many of them were forced out of the industry. They had to turn elsewhere. They couldn't get any respect whatsoever. So when I originated the Shazam movie project and set it up at New Line, I felt a personal responsibility to my mentor, Otto Binder, to the co-creator of Captain Marvel, C.C. Beck, with whom I had a weekly written correspondence starting in 7th grade. And to Wendell Crowley and Will Lieberson, whom I knew and corresponded with, who were the editors of Wiz and Captain Marvel. I feel this personally on my shoulders. And if it's too late for them, I at least want their kids or grandkids or great-grandkids to see their artwork hanging in museums or galleries or universities, and to see worldwide respect being paid to their characters. It doesn't always succeed. You take your best shots, but that's always the goal for me. And it's very personal in that sense.
Well, and the world we live in 2022 is so vastly different from that world in 1978, 1979, when Superman was the only movie, and then Batman was the only movie, and then maybe another Superman movie, and then another Batman, but that was kind of it. And to your point about Shazam, like we're having 2 Shazam movies and a Black Adam movie. Like the entire DC canon is live action now, which is just unfathomable 20, 30 years ago. And speaking of the bat, the Flash has a movie, and it's a little kismet that the Flash is coming out in June 23rd, 2023, which is, a special date. You can see I have a poster to my right. That is a very special date in Batman lore. And I just what do you feel like seeing Michael Keaton in the suit again, like 30 some years later? Does it feel like full circle? Like what was that feeling to see Michael Keaton back in the bat suit?
Chills. It's lit. I mean, even as you mention it right now, the chills would start. It is about the circle of life. For those of us that were there at the time, how important a moment, how life-changing or career-changing or cultural changing that moment was. I don't know exactly how best to communicate that to younger fans today, to explain the magic of June 1989, the summer of 89, when you could not walk through Times Square 20 steps without seeing someone in a Batman hat or a Batman t-shirt. And people were breaking into the bus station displays to get the posters.
Which I did not do. I did not steal this from the bus station. I'm just clarifying.
And they were paying full admission price at movies just because they heard the Batman trailer was playing there. They'd watch the trailer and then they'd leave. It was a phenomenon. And the fact that the original posters and all the billboards had that bat in the oval and June 23rd with no name of the picture on it, because nobody around the world needed the name of the picture. Everybody knew what was coming.
You talked about your first Batman. Of course, when I was little, the 66 Batman was, in syndication. I watched it religiously. I watched the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, but I was 12 when this came out. So like that is in the sweet spot of, that's why I also have the shrine to Michael behind me here. I have a few of his figures behind me. So like, I'm as giddy as anyone for this Flash movie to see Michael back in the suit. Of course, he's also in Batgirl. Like that journey, those two movies were so foundational to my fandom. And we are sitting here the 30th anniversary of Batman Returns. And it's just, I can't imagine, I'm still waiting to see, you've already seen him in the suit. I'm still waiting to see him in the suit. Because I remember that feeling of anticipation and like real Batmania. There was a Batmania 66 and there was Batmania 89. And I think, to your point, no one will know what that's like anymore, because everything's niche. Everything is like, there is no monoculture anymore.
I can begin to explain that there were lines that wrapped around blocks for 2 days. And there were people online, mostly young people, I might add, who would have guitars online for the 2 days, who would have pizzas delivered online so they could have food for 2 days while they slept online waiting to get into the theater. I don't know how you explain all of that, but I will tell you this. The individually most affecting moments I have had have really come lately with the announcement of Michael Keaton coming back in the Batman Flash movie, or whatever you want to call it. I've gotten a lot of letters and emails and postings, and they all typically go like this. I was 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, whatever it was at the time of Batman 1989. I'm going to get emotional with this. I always when I read the letters. My dad took me. My grandpa took me. They're not here now. And I will never forget this memory, this bonding moment we shared. And now with Michael Keaton coming back, I'm going to take my kids. I'm going to take my grandkids to see it. And hopefully they will have that memory of me in this special moment. Oh my God.
I mean, again, going back to yourself in 1978, like the impact that vow that you made in the 60s would bring to the world. I mean, I don't know that you were, I mean, I guess it's like Batman, right? I don't think you knew exactly what you were getting into and what it was going to mean, that symbol to the rest of the world. And you know, like the last 40 years has just been a testament to that.
I always knew it was the right thing to do. I always knew that it would be successful, but I never understood until it happened that it was going to be less about how it impacts the box office historically and more about how it impacted the world culture.
Yeah.
And the key moment for me came that summer. The Berlin Wall fell, and I'm watching it on CNN well into the night. I can't take my eyes off of it. And it's about 1:30 in the morning, and they're coming through the wall into freedom for the first time in their lives. I see a kid of about 10 years old coming through, and he's wearing a Batman hat. And that was the moment I said, oh my God, this is so much bigger than just some Hollywood story, some box office story.
Mm.
There was something going on at a very, very large level here. That's when I first started to comprehend what was happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to let you go before we talk about these books that are sitting behind me on the shelf. I think Robert Pattinson's Batman is dutifully guarding. So you have two memoirs out. The Boy Who Loved the Batman came out a few years ago, and then the follow-up to that memoir, Batman's Batman, you referenced it earlier, just came out earlier this month. And I just wanted to like thank you for them, because what I was surprised about the second book is that it is a memoir, but it's also kind of like a how-to book, right? It's about like how you produce a big Hollywood blockbuster. Can you tell our viewers what to expect when they buy Batman's Batman?
Yeah, the first book detailed my odyssey, my human endurance contest to try to buy Batman when I was in my 20s, and then to try to get that first movie made, and the 10 years that it took, 10 years of rejection, 10 years of people telling me, you suck, your idea stinks, and what you do to persevere, to hold on by your fingertips, to make your dreams come true, especially when you have no advantage, because I didn't come from money. My dad was a stonemason. My mom was a bookkeeper. I didn't have any relatives in Hollywood. I knew nobody in Hollywood. So how do you make your dreams come true? How do you explore and find your passion to begin with, and then follow your passion? With Batman's Batman, it's about my adventures and more about my misadventures in Hollywood. And over the 45 years of my career, the hits, but mostly the misses, and how you deal with that and how you try to get through that. It could be very frustrating. So you have to understand what a producer does. I kind of describe my job as I am boss, I am camp counselor, mother, father, shrink. What do I do? What's my job? It's very simple. Every day I report to a sandbox and I play with my favorite toys. That's what I do for a living. So
living the dream.
People think, oh, how glamorous. The parts they don't see,
right,
that I wanted to emphasize is you pay a price for this. You pay a price. If I didn't absolutely love what I do, I would be in some dark room in Arkham, in a nice tight little white jacket. I work typically 12 to 18 hours in a day. My Saturdays and Sundays are often not much different than my Tuesdays and my Wednesdays. My wife and I have not been on a vacation in 14 years. I have a brother, Paul, who is an optometrist in Ann Arbor, Michigan. On Friday afternoons at 5:30, he locks his door and doesn't think about that business, his work, until 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday when he opens it. I never stop thinking about my work. It is with me every minute. I play a continual career game of chess, strategizing, having my plans B, C, and D, and what it takes to do that. And if you look back on it, it's pretty much goes back to Bruce Wayne. It's about making a sacrifice in order to honor your vow. And then even if you have to walk through hell for the rest of your life, you've made a commitment, you persevere, and you deal with the frustration and you honor your vow. And at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And I could not do it without a support system of real life superheroes. I had the most wonderful parents in the world who were always self-sacrificing. who always realized they had a quirky, geeky little kid, and catered to all of my interests and sacrificed for that. I had two teachers who changed my life, made me believe in my own creative ability and creative writing ability, and that I could channel that into my work as an adult. I had mentors like Stan Lee and Saul Harrison at DC Comics and Jerry Robinson, Otto Binder from the comic book world. Could not have made it without my family and friends. I had a wife who was willing to sacrifice everything and roll the dice with me in an attempt to make my dreams come true. I am so fortunate, so lucky, and it takes your own Justice League or Avengers to get you there.
Well, we'll say Justice League just for what it's worth. Well, you know,
I'm a comic book fan.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair, like the DC Marvel rivalry is overblown because you can love it all. Why can't we just love it all? Which I do.
I don't understand the rivalry today. I really don't. I collected everything, every small comic book company, Classics Illustrated, Archie, whatever it was. I bought it, loved it, collected it. I loved superheroes and comic books, and so I don't really understand why certain fans just love DC and hate Marvel, or love Marvel and hate DC. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But you know, I am from a different generation.
Right. Well, and you know, that's the thing, right? The geek have inherited the earth, so now we can factionalize, I guess, as part of the thing.
Another way I'm being pushed out of my comfort zone in this, what I call the fourth quarter of my career, is the fact that The Boy Who Loved Batman and Batman's Batman are being turned into a Broadway play by the Nederlander organization of New York City, which compromises half of Broadway. And it is being fast-tracked right now. And it is the story of the kid who dreams big and is willing to persevere and buys the rights to Batman in his 20s, and what it took to do it. It's a story of dreaming. It's a story of hope. And that if I could do it, anybody could make their dreams come true. And I am so excited about this project coming to Broadway based on my two memoirs.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And you know, I'm as much of a Broadway fan as I am a Batman fan. So like, that's just the kind of the melding of those two worlds is fantastic. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much for that. And as Stan Lee always said, Michael, make sure you get in the plug. So Stan, I hear you. Batman's Batman, as well as The Boy Who Loved Batman, are available now. Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, yada, yada, yada. The audiobook versions are now on sale. And I do my own narration. I can read to you at night as you're falling asleep. So I was inspired by my hero, Gene Shepard, whom I used to listen to every night on WOR radio in New York as he would spin his stories. And he's, of course, most known for his story, A Christmas Story, which is one of my favorite films, which Gene narrated. So I take my cues from him in trying to do that kind of a thing.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so thrilled for the play and for the memoirs. They are great, fantastic reads. For anyone, you don't even have to be a Batman fan to appreciate your story, but it does help when you are a Batman fan. So if you haven't, please check out Batman's Batman and The Boy Who Loved Batman. And also, while you're at it, there's a little indie movie in the theaters right now called The Batman. You might want to check that out too. Michael Uslan, thank you so much for, you know, again, I love these quadrennial conversations when we always check in every 4 years. Maybe 4 years from now, we'll have something else to talk about.
Well, yeah, maybe we do this in a year when the next the next Flash movie comes out.
Hey, if you're willing, I'm willing, because, you know, the more reasons to talk about Batman, the better.
Right.
The activists, directors, comments and the lectures, fanboys, professional artists and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC. In full color, you see me. The Hard Knock Life.